Hey everyone, this is the Mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your lovely dinner feasts with your friends, family, and loved ones. So yesterday, I read that Martell is still stalking Melody and somewhat violating his restraining order. Apparently, he is still keeping tabs on his ex-wife almost 4 years after their divorce. And I'm going to attempt to explain why Melody is still going through this from an astrological perspective, because I briefly addressed this Pluto in Aquarius transit a few years back, and my OG subscribers may remember this. I'm also discussing this because a lot of other people with personal planets in the fixed signs of Leo, Taurus, Scorpio, and Aquarius may be going through a similar situation as Melody, or they will be sometime during this 20-year transit, especially if Mars is an aspect. I think Ariane also has Venus in Leo, so she may also experience some type of relationship drama over the next 20 years. So for this discussion, I'm going to discuss how the energy of Pluto is not only a contributing factor to the destruction of Martell and Melody's relationship, but it is also partially the reason why there's still acrimony between them more than 3 years after the divorce. But first, I'll start with some background information, and then I'll get into how the current Pluto transit in Aquarius is affecting Melody. For starters, Melody has a stellium in Scorpio, including her Sun, Moon, Mercury, Saturn, Venus, Pluto, and the South Node. Pluto is the co-ruler of Scorpio, which is also ruled by the warrior planet of Mars. So it is safe to say that Melody is very Martian and Plutonian by nature, and her relationships with her friends, family, and associates reflect the energy of this sign. In astrology, Pluto represents power, obsession, betrayal, transformation, mortality, paranoia, and compulsive behavior. People with Pluto conjunct the Sun or the Ascendant have an easier relationship to power because other people in their environment may have freely given it to them throughout their lives. They've never had to prove themselves to get power. When they walk into the room, people assume that they're an authority figure, and they're usually treated with deference and some sort of respect. This is especially true if Pluto is in a masculine sign like Aries, Leo, or Scorpio. And I'm saying Scorpio because this sign is ruled by Mars. Donald Trump has Mars and Pluto in Leo in his first house. So throughout his life, he's assumed power and leadership, and people deferred to his authority without much resistance. People with Pluto conjunct the Sun or the Ascendant natally usually don't have to be bullies because they're not afraid of losing power. And they're not afraid of losing it because they've had a lot of life experience exercising power, even if they grew up in challenging circumstances. Martell, on the other hand, has Pluto, Mars, and Saturn in Libra, and his Sun is in Capricorn. This is a square by element. Square aspects represent obstacles, blocks, tough lessons, compromises, and struggles. With Pluto square his Sun, Martell does not have a healthy relationship with power. When he gets power, he becomes a bully, and he does not want to let it go. Similar to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Joe Biden has a Sun in Scorpio and Pluto in Leo. Like Martell chose Ariane as a submissive side piece, Joe Biden chose Kamala Harris as a weak vice president because he was insecure that she would upstage him if she were more competent. His insecurity was exacerbated by his age and his declining mental health. Joe Biden did not want to be upstaged by Kamala Harris, just like Kamala Harris did not want to be upstaged by her vice presidential pick, Tim Walz. People with Pluto square the Sun or the Ascendant, Kamala Harris has Pluto square her Ascendant. She has Pluto in Virgo and her Ascendant in Gemini. People with this aspect are more comfortable with weaker subordinates because they're paranoid about losing their power to a stronger competitor. Now, this feeling of insecurity can be triggered by a Pluto transit as well. So even if you're born with Pluto conjunct your Sun or Ascendant, the Pluto square to your Sun or Ascendant can trigger these feelings of insecurity. And you can end up becoming a bully as well if you don't keep your insecurities in check. On the other hand, Donald Trump, if you've noticed, surrounds himself with fighters and other very powerful people because he knows that their power automatically becomes his power. He is not necessarily threatened by bigger, stronger competitors because they cannot overpower him, especially not with Pluto and Mars in Leo in the first house. First of all, Mars is in domicile in the first house. Pluto is exalted in Leo. And Mars and Pluto have a natural affinity as the co-rulers of Scorpio. After Trump won the election, if you've noticed, all of his haters in the media immediately capitulated and kissed the ring. That is how Pluto conjunct the sun or ascendant works. So back to Martell and Melody. As a Scorpio, Melody is very aware of her personal power. She knows when she's giving her strength away or losing it for some reason. Throughout their relationship, Melody kept giving her power away to Martell to assuage his fragile Sun square Pluto ego. If you guys remember in season 2 or 3 or 4, I believe, Melody stated that they could barely celebrate their first year anniversary because of Martell's mouth and his attitude.
I've not done so much more than you. Name it.
Every time you left the house, you stayed gone for a day and told you was in a hotel.
I was by myself. Don't no woman just up and leave. Yeah. We barely celebrated our first year anniversary because of your mouth and how you talk to me and your attitude. Let's be 100. So you've been disrespecting me for years.
Stop talking so loud. You disrespecting me now in a public place. Stop.
You disrespected me publicly.
No, I didn't.
The biggest disrespect you could ever do.
I did not.
Hey, too bad you didn't care enough about your public appearance to keep your penis in the household. So, miss me.
So throughout their entire relationship, their entire marriage, Martell was emotionally and verbally abusing Melody to the point where she had to leave their home and spend the night in hotels for peace. Because Melody was always aware of her own personal power, she kept fighting back against Martell's attempts to conquer her the way he has Arion.
Stop lying.
It's not a lie.
Damn. Get tired of you lying so much. You victim.
Oh, whoa.
Stop being the victim all the time.
Oh,
it gets on my nerves.
So everybody just heard everything Martell said.
No,
and
because
Martell said I'm playing the victim.
I wish one day people will see the person that you really are. You throw all the damn stones and hide your hands and be the victim. Because when we start going through stuff, I told you what you weren't doing in the marriage.
Okay.
And then you didn't fulfill that. And then I stepped out because you weren't taking care of me.
Okay.
And then somebody started taking care of me, and now I'm like, I like this, what I went to. And then you still disrespecting me. You still not being the person that I want you to be. This other person I'm talking to, she satisfying me.
I'm tired of hearing you saying that. Know that. I'm tired of hearing you say that. Because it was the truth. You would have been gone and asked for a divorce a long time ago. So don't sit here and act like that's the truth.
When Melody gave Martell her power, she did so in good faith, hoping that he would use that power that she gave him as his wife and business partner and the father of her children to protect her, to nurture her, to strengthen their relationship and their family. But because Martell was a bully, because of his insecurities, he weaponized Melody's power against her, using it to silence her, humble her, or subjugate her further.
So when the pandemic happened and you saw your husband leave the house, you figured out that he was seeing this other woman.
Leaving the house for hours at a time, like you said, everything shut down. Our companies and clients that we've been doing work for shut down. We've always been very particular when we have kids to make sure that we keep them safe. So we always, like when I had all our kids, I'd stay in the house for 6-8 weeks. And so for him to leave for hours at a time, that it didn't make sense to me. But not only that, there were certain things Martell started saying that wasn't adding up, such as, like, I was going to learn to accept him cheating. And, you know, I need to talk to the older women. And I said, well, Martell, maybe you need to talk to the older men. And he was like, I'll never forget this conversation. That's why I can repeat it word for word. He was like, I have. I said, well, what did they say? He was like, honestly, they said, don't mess with nobody that ain't got nothing to lose. Make her sign a contract. And hearing him say this when I'm a new mom, I was like, he hasn't changed at all or grown up. He's figuring out how to do it better. He's figuring out how to be deceptive better. And that's when I made the decision to leave. I hadn't at that time heard anything about a baby or anybody being pregnant. It had nothing to do with that.
So you didn't leave.
The more power Melody gave Martell, the more abusive he got because, again, people with Pluto square the sun end up treating people the way they were treated growing up. Most of these people were abused, neglected, or humiliated in some way during their childhood. Unfortunately, a lot of them have fantasies about getting revenge on the people who made fun of them for being poor or ugly or fat or not having a father or having a crackhead mother. They try to get revenge by being successful or by being bullies or doing something else to make other people feel the way they felt when they were children. I would not be surprised if it comes out at some point that Kamala Harris was a bully to her subordinates and her staff, which is why a lot of her female staff quit within months of her assuming vice presidential office. So, to feed his ego, Martell found a side piece that would submit to him and allow him to do anything to her, regardless of how difficult it made her life. That's a bully. If you notice, Martell treats Ariane the same way he tried to treat Melody, yet Ariane is still with him, apparently, and they're not even married. Martell wanted to use Melody's power to break her so that he could feel better about himself. And this is one of the reasons why she can't stand him today. It wasn't just about the affair and the side baby. It was about the fact that throughout their relationship, Melody put aside her very strong ego, because she's naturally very powerful, and sacrificed her personal power for the sake of their marriage, their children, and their businesses. So Melody went through a lot of hell going against her own nature. And instead of appreciating her, Martell used Melody's submissiveness and capitulation and subservience to their family, to him, right? To what they were trying to build. He used that against her to humble her, humiliate her, and torment her because, again, he did not know how to manage power. He is not a good leader. He needed Melody's subservience and her humiliation to validate his fragile ego. This is the primary reason why I believe Melody has so much pity and contempt for Martell, because he used her strength to mask his weaknesses. And then he used her strength and her resources, Venus, right, to try to break her down permanently, Pluto, so that she would resign herself to and accept being his emotional punching bag for the rest of their marriage. If you pay attention to the way Martell refused to protect Melody throughout their relationship, he refused to honor her and respect her integrity. He really tried to break her down to his level of powerlessness. But because Melody has a Scorpio sun with Pluto in conjunction, just like Sierra, this was not going to happen easily for Martell. Whatever power Melody gave to Martell, just like Sierra gave to Future, she could take it back easily because she knew she lent it to him. She was willing to sacrifice her peace, her body, and even her money for the relationship, but she was never going to totally give up all her power. One of the reasons why Melody didn't know Martell was cheating for 2 years was because she completely trusted him. And for Scorpios, trust is a form of power.
Because of the baby. You left because you saw that he wanted to be a smarter cheater and wanted you to accept it.
And it had been 3 years. March of 2017, I found out that Martell had been seeing someone. A couple of months before that, we were at our home in our kitchen and his phone rung. We were in the kitchen, he had walked over to the sink or something. I was at the table and it kept ringing, block call, back to back to back. And I was like, what is going on? So I just answered hello and they hung up. And I was like, huh? Then they called back. So I was like, hello? And then his child's mother said, I didn't call your phone, put Martell on the phone. Mind you, at this point, I didn't have any inclination that there was infidelity going on in my marriage. I honestly didn't. And so I was like, what in the hell? You know, what is going on? Who you talking to? And so then I'm like, Martell, come get the phone. He wouldn't come get the phone for anything in the world. She called back and kept calling back. That was the first line of disrespect.
If I trust you, you're in a position to betray me and therefore overpower me. So essentially, Martell did everything in his ability, in his power, to assume Melody's power for himself. And this is one of the reasons why after a side baby, a 5-year affair, multiple different women he's messed with, and the fact that Melody is no longer accessible to him, he is still obsessed with her.
I wanted to talk to you for a moment about what happened at Bridge Street. So I want us to have a conversation about boundaries, about respect, and what that looks like for us when it comes to us. Because what happened was out of line, totally out of line and unnecessary.
Mel, listen, it's like when you do something, it's cool. Like, you do stuff all the time on social media.
Like what?
I'm saying when I even mentioned I had a baby or something like that, you went straight to social media. So now when I see you with a dude, it was a shocker to me. You know, it's the first time me saying something like that. So, hell yeah. You know, I was like, what's up, Mel? So you walked over there, we talked.
Yeah.
And I told you I was coming over to Condoms where you was gonna be at.
You didn't tell me you were coming home. You said, where y'all going?
I said, I'll be over there.
No, no.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
No.
I had all intentions to come over there.
But for what?
Because I wanted to.
I saw her at a restaurant. You know, she said she was on a date. I'm like, oh, okay.
Like, you had a whole business meeting. Somebody you told me flew in from LA. So you step out of a business meeting deal possibility to address your ex-wife about her being out in public with someone and you got them waiting on you. Then you probably ended the damn meeting in 15 minutes just so you could come over there.
It don't matter.
It does matter.
To me, no.
So this is what I'm saying,
cool.
when you talk about your business reputation and trying to get things back however you want them to be, that's
Stop
childish.
doing stuff. Everything you're doing, especially on social media, is childish. I'd much rather do something in your face, in your presence, than hide behind a damn computer.
Martell, I have not, as of late at all, been bothering you on social media. Like, you literally was like, are you on the date? I said, I'm walking out at Brick Street. Now you gonna be my wife again.
No, I ain't say I don't want you to be my wife again.
Okay, Martell. Okay, Martell. Whatever you like to say.
I don't want you to be my wife
Well,
again.
that's not what you just said.
I just said I don't want you to be my wife again. I told you that before.
That's not what you just said the
What
other
I've said in the
day.
past is only way that I will be with you is only because of my children.
Martell Hope, let's see.
And my thing is, why are we even discussing stuff like
Now let's analyze Melody's chart really quickly, okay? Melody is currently experiencing an applying square between her natal Venus at 2 degrees of Scorpio and Pluto in Aquarius at 0 degrees. This energy was activated around 3 to 4 years ago when Pluto was at 26 degrees of Capricorn, around the time that Melody and Martell's divorce was finalized, and is going to reach a head or resolution over the next 12 to 18 months when the square reaches exactitude at 2 degrees of Aquarius. In astrology, as I mentioned earlier, squares represents obstacles, lessons, blocks, challenges, resistance, sacrifice, force. This is like the Two of Swords in Tarot. The intensity of these experiences of the square or the conjunction or the trine, it increases as the planets reach the exact same degree. For Melody, the first square she'll be experiencing over the next couple years is to her Venus in Scorpio. Venus represents women, beauty, money, harmony, relationships, etc. Pluto represents power, force, obsession, and betrayal. At the beginning of this applying square, which started a few years ago, Melody found out that Martell impregnated Arion. We can see how Pluto's influence affected Melody's Venus. Martell's betrayal, Pluto, forced Melody to end their marriage, Venus. She was also forced to shut down their businesses, Venus, and break up their family, which is the moon and Venus. Melody has the moon in Scorpio too. Since then, Pluto's obsessive energy was activated on Martell's part. With the square, Martell is intentionally trying to obstruct Melody's finances and her relationships. So let's talk about Aquarius really quickly. Aquarius rules friends, networks, groups, associations, technology, and social media. With Pluto in Aquarius, Martell is still using his friends, technology, and social media to spy on Melody. Now, if you remember, Melody has Venus in Scorpio, and Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto. So Melody has transmuted the negative energy from her relationship, Venus, into a thriving brand and business. But because of the square aspect, this is both a bane and a boon. Melody uses social media for her brand, but because Martell represents Pluto, he is using her social media presence to spy on her and influence her subconsciously. He does not want Melody to forget him. She is still accessible to him, and I would not be surprised if he has a burner account to spy on her, and I also wouldn't be surprised if he has people spying on her to block her Venus, which is love and money. Martell's Pluto wants power from Melody's Venus, and if he can't get it, he will try to sabotage her romantically and financially. Also, after Pluto separates from Venus, it will form another square to Melody's natal Pluto at 5 degrees of Scorpio and her natal moon at 7 degrees of Scorpio. When Pluto makes a square to the moon, we may feel insecure and unsafe in our homes. Our relationships with our parents, our family members, or our home changes permanently. Melody's two oldest children, Mariah and Tank, will be going off to college within the next 6 years, and this will permanently change the dynamic in their home. Hopefully, Melody won't be forced to move because of a stalker or other shenanigans, but the next 20 years, give or take, will be very intense for Melody and other fixed signs. Now, for the next several months, things could get especially intense for Melody because of the Mars and Leo transit. Mars is currently going retrograde, is going to go into Cancer and then back into Leo through the beginning of the year, the first 3 months of the year, and then around September of next year, there could be another clash between her and Martell. Of course, this intensity won't be every day. There will be periods of peace and progress. But pay attention to Mars and Pluto transits over the next 20 years, especially if your personal planets, Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury, Mars, the ascendant, they're in fixed signs. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready with this transit. Fortunately, Melody does not have Mars in a fixed sign, because then this Pluto in Aquarius would be even more intense and possibly dangerous. And I went through this transit about 16 years ago and I survived, but it was very intense. So in summary, Martell is Melody's Pluto. When they first got married, Pluto was in Capricorn, and it's not a coincidence that Martell has a Capricorn sun. At the beginning of their marriage, Pluto and Capricorn formed a sextile with Melody's Venus in Scorpio. Remember, Venus represents money, sensuality, women, harmony, and relationships. The Pluto-Venus sextile supported Melody in these areas, and she and Martell had a lot of sexual chemistry. They both built a lot together, and in spite of his verbal abuse, Melody was committed to making the relationship work, even at the expense of her mental and emotional health, because Venus likes to compromise. It likes harmony. It likes balance. As Pluto reached the 5th degree of this transit, Uranus entered Aries in 2011, and this transit formed a square with Martell's sun in Capricorn. Uranus is one of the malefics that is highly disruptive. With Uranus square his sun, Martell started to crave freedom from responsibilities, obligations, and contracts. When his desire was not met, he became even more abusive and disrespectful to let off steam, because Uranus was also forming an opposition with his Mars in Libra, right? Uranus opposite Mars wants sexual freedom, even unconventional sex. This is one of the cheating aspects. Martell met Arion during this 7-year transit. I think they met in 2016, 2017. This is a transit responsible for the 7-year itch. Some say it's Saturn, some say it's Uranus. So since 2011, unbeknownst to Melody, Martell was experiencing a Uranian transit that was making him less reliable and trustworthy, and he is desperate for freedom at this time. Now, Uranus entered Taurus in 2018, but for Martell, the Pandora box had already been opened, and his affair with Arion begins to pick up momentum and steam, because not only is this Uranus and Taurus forming a square with Martell's Venus, which represents women and beauty and sensuality, Arion's Venus in Leo is also being squared by this Uranus and Taurus transit. So Uranus square Venus transits represent infidelity in affairs, period. Uranus and Mars, okay? So his affair with Arion picks up momentum. Uranus in Taurus now opposes Melody's Venus in Scorpio. The opposition is a relational aspect, okay? Uranus opposite Venus is also another aspect for infidelity, because again, Uranus is a malefic and it's very disruptive, especially in a dissonant aspect. Dissonant aspects are conjunctions, in my opinion, which is not really considered an aspect, whatever. But your conjunctions, oppositions, and especially squares. So during this transit, which will last until 2026, Melody also wanted freedom from Martell, not because of another man, but because his behavior was becoming more unpredictable and disrespectful. Uranus transits that make a square, conjunction, or opposition to Venus can sometimes create irresistible attractions and uncontrollable urges to cheat with someone outside of your marriage. This is an uncontrollable whirlwind affair, okay? So during this transit of Uranus and Taurus, which will last until 2026, Melody also wanted freedom from Martell because his behavior was becoming more unpredictable and disrespectful. In fact, in 2020, Uranus and Taurus was in between Melody's moon, which is her home, and her Venus, which is her relationship. She moved out of the marital home and filed for divorce that year. At this time, Pluto was at 23 degrees of Capricorn, about 9 degrees away from Melody's Venus. Now, for some astrologers, Pluto-Venus aspects are like 5-degree orbs or 10-degree orbs. It depends on the astrologer, but 9 degrees away, you're going to start feeling the effects of Pluto, okay? So when Pluto was about 10 degrees away from forming a square with Melody's Venus, Martell told her that he got Arion pregnant. So now the thunderstorm is forming because this Pluto-Venus square is about to be activated. Okay, in 2021, Melody's divorce was finalized and the Pluto-Venus square was officially off to the races. It hadn't reached exactitude yet, but the energy was picking up. It was becoming more tense, more vicious, more volatile, more dangerous, okay? This is not a square by element, right? Pluto in Capricorn at 26, 27 degrees is not a square to Venus in Scorpio by element. It's a square by degree. okay? This is what you would call an out-of-sign square. So before this square event, because Pluto was forming a sextile with Venus and Scorpio, Pluto and Capricorn forming a sextile with Venus and Scorpio, Melody was willing to work on her marriage due to the Venus sextile. But as the square comes into exactitude, which means that the degree of separation or the orb gets smaller between the two planets and they're at the same degree, right? The energy gets more intense and explosive. And unfortunately for Melody, her Venus is currently besieged by two highly disruptive malefics, Pluto and Uranus. When you have a besiegement, things go from bad to worse, and there is no easy way out, okay? You have to make a sacrifice, and you have to make a tough decision. So Melody had to make a sacrifice. She could either stay in an abusive marriage with a side baby and a disrespectful mistress, or file for divorce and lose everything she worked for over a decade, including the nuclear family and the man she loved. She chose the latter. She chose to walk away with her freedom, but nothing else, right? Now, because she chose the latter, this triggered the hell out of Martell, aka Pluto. And this Venus square thunderstorm was about to become a hurricane because now that Melody has broken tradition, which is what Pluto and Capricorn represents, the father, patriarchy, tradition, marriage, social status, legacy, business, social institutions, etc., her Venus will now be attacked by Pluto, aka Martell. Venus represents Melody's womanhood, her finances, her safety, her peace, harmony, and even her female friends. Pluto, aka Martell, was using everything in his power to keep his Persephone, which is Melody, locked in a cage because in his mind, Melody was his property. As a matter of fact, he still thinks she is his property. He still thinks that without him, there will be no Melody Cherie.
Yes.
Embrace
beauty. We was in agreement with 15%, and then you said, I don't think you should have anything. I'm saying, how could you say that I would not get anything out of a company that I helped bring about? Why would you do that? To me, at heart, you shouldn't do that. I've always treated you in a way that...
Let's talk about the treatment. Go ahead.
Financially, we'll speak financially. That I trusted you with everything, with every dime in my, I would give it to you to make sure you make the right decisions with my last dime. You know what I'm saying? Like, I bring checks. Yeah, that was all the money, the effort, the time that I put in and that you put in behind you to push the brand of Melody Holt. So now, you would be like remiss if you wasn't doing what you're doing now because we put so much time, money, and effort behind you and your brand over all these years.
Okay,
You've been on social media for how long? 10, 11 years? And
Before I met you, since college. Since college.
Listen.
Since college, I've been on social media, absolutely.
I don't want to hit it, but you ain't been branding. You was a damn school teacher. You don't forget.
School teachers are amazing. Thank God
of course,
for all
and that's
the
why I
school
became
teachers.
a school teacher.
But you always
saying.
talk down when you mention school teachers, like that's a bad career choice. Like you just said, you was a damn school teacher. So were you. Did you forget?
No. The reason
you resigned 4 months before me.
Because I was making 6 figures cutting grass.
Well,
and then I gave you the opportunity months later to resign too.
All right, you ready?
No.
Are you ready?
I mean, hold on.
How many clients did you have then? Your grandfather and about 5 more?
Who did it? Who named it? Who named everything dealing with us? Me. Who put everything together? Me. Who made you CEO of Holt & Holt? Me.
It was a
Who talked about the book? Wrote the book? Me.
If you guys remember in season 2, when they were negotiating, how they're going to divide their assets in the divorce, Martell basically said that he was the one who was responsible for everything. If it wasn't for him, she wouldn't be who she is, period. That's one of the reasons why he's very upset about this, okay? So women who have Venus conjunct, square, or opposite Pluto in their natal chart or even in a transit, they encounter men who want to own them. This is one of the stalker aspects. With Pluto and Capricorn, Martell was keeping the institution of marriage, their businesses, their social status, and their family, and all the other significations of Capricorn to guilt Melody and hold her hostage to an abusive situation. That is why when she first filed for divorce, he insisted that they live in the house together. He tried to prevent her from moving out. He delayed the divorce and tried to weaponize their children against her by threatening to file for full custody. Martell's inner bully came out when his ego was bruised. So the divorce is finalized in 2021 when Pluto was at 26 degrees of Capricorn. Unfortunately, it was not over because the Pluto-Venus square is just getting activated for Melody. Over the next 3 years, as we've seen, Martell desperately keeps tabs on Melody, watching her every move on social media to ensure that she does not move on with her life or expose him even more for being a raging lunatic narcissist. Pluto has dipped back and forth into Aquarius over the past several years. And again, what does Aquarius represent? Friends, groups, technology, social media. So now that their Pluto and Capricorn contract has expired because they're no longer married, Martell is using Pluto in Aquarius to surveil Melody in untraditional ways. Melody uses her platform to sell her beauty products, Venus, and market her brand, Venus. This is a Venus-Aquarius interplay, right? However, because the activity involves a square with Pluto, the very platform that Melody is using to make money or to promote her brand and connect with women, right? Venus, again. Martell is using these tools for her brand and her business to keep an eye on her and to make sure she doesn't cross the line, i.e., he wants to make sure she doesn't make him look bad. So there's another catch-22 for Melody, right? Because they're still dealing with a besiegement here to an extent. Once Uranus moves into Gemini, Melody would get some more relief, but as of right now, she's still going through this nonsense, okay? So here's another catch-22 for Melody. She can stay on social media, which kind of makes it easier for Martell to stalk and triangulate with her, or shut down her social media and get off the show to protect her peace. But if she shuts down her social media, she could be in more danger because her high visibility offers her some protection. And Melody knows this because she is a Scorpio. Scorpios can turn poison into medicine. But because we have a square here with Pluto and Venus in Scorpio, Melody is unfortunately constantly in a state of insecurity or fear or even paranoia. She does not trust any man because the Pluto-Venus square permanently transformed her attitude towards men and relationships. She has promised herself to never get with another Martell, even if it means she has to be alone for the rest of her life. She's content with that because this situation really scarred her. Now, one more point about the Venus-Pluto square. With the Venus-Pluto square, Martell also weaponized Arion, who is Venus, against Melody. He took Melody's money, which is her Venus, and gave it to another woman to disempower her, which is Pluto. Again, with the Venus-Pluto square, Venus representing money and women, Martell was taking money from Melody and their marital home in a sense, right? Melody was busting her ass for their businesses and their family. He was taking those funds and giving it to another woman to attack Melody, as an attack against Melody. That is Venus square Pluto, one of the manifestations of it. And Scorpio deals with other people's resources. And again, Melody has Venus in Scorpio. So Martell was taking her money, her personal resources, and giving it to another woman as an attack against her to take her power away. Melody will never trust another man again. Yes, she will find love again. I'm sure of it. But it won't be easy to get her down the aisle again. She's not looking forward to getting married. The idea of doing that is probably very triggering for her, which is understandable. And that's what Martell wants too. As long as she's afraid and small and kept into a small box, right? She's imprisoned by her own fear of him and his retribution and his pettiness and his vindictiveness. He can control her. That's all that he wants. That's all that he wants, to control Melody. That's his whole life's mission now. So to close it out, Martell is more than likely using his friends and social media to spy on Melody because he feels entitled to her. Hopefully, and actually it will, this energy will dissipate as the transit progresses. But as I outlined earlier, Melody has a lot of planets in Scorpio. And so this Pluto square transit is going to be very transformative for her over the next 20 years. It's going to hit her sun, her moon, is hitting her Venus, her Pluto, South Node, Saturn. It's hitting a lot of planets. But Pluto squares force us to develop or exercise our own personal power in ways that may initially be uncomfortable because Melody did not want to get a divorce. But this is the transit that represents the death of the ego. The things that give us validation, right? The power couple, business woman, all that stuff. The things that give us validation or purpose are snatched away to force us to be true to ourselves without the mask of marriage or money or success or fame. While Pluto was in Capricorn, it formed the conjunction with Martell's sun in Capricorn. So during that 16-year transit, Martell's determination and focus was rewarded with a beautiful wife, healthy, beautiful children, social status, clout, etc. But because of his natal Sun-Pluto square, these external accomplishments were used to hide his fragile ego and abusive temperament, and thus he became a bully and lost everything to force him to love and accept himself without the accoutrements of success. And with that, I'm going to leave it there. If you want to order a personal reading, The link's in my description box. I look forward to reading your feedback. Happy holidays. Oh yeah, one more thing. I'm going to post my Big Sean astrological analysis for Stargaze members tomorrow because I'm going to explain why he's not committing to Janae Aiko after 9 years and a baby. It's quite simple. I'm not doing a synastry for them because their charts are actually quite similar. He's the issue in our relationship. But anyway, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.